Jack the vehicle up, put it on jack stands, we'll pull the tire off. Now having an impact is not necessary, but it's sure gonna make your life a whole lot easier. Take off our axle nut as a 36 millimeter. That little washer off. We wanna make sure that our axle slides freely in our wheel hub. This one does, sweet. Now if you don't have an impact, to get this nut off, you can put a screwdriver in the fins of our brake rotor. And then as you go to brake it, this will just lock it in place so our hub doesn't spin. Next we have our tie rod. We're just gonna break this jam nut. It is a 24 millimeter. There we go. Then our stud nut is a 21 millimeter. Now having a pickle fork will come in handy pulling this off. It goes right in here, we'll tap on it. I'm gonna move our tires so we have better access. All right, pickle fork. Now if you don't have a pickle fork, you can hit on the knuckle. That vibration will break it loose. That's up to you. Pickle fork goes in. There we go. Ugh, gooey gooey. Wipe off all this splooge on our steering knuckle. Now our upper ball joint nut, we're just gonna put a little lubricant on it. And we'll do that to the bottom as well. Without our tie rod connected, we can turn the wheel by hand and we'll get to our brake. We'll take a screwdriver, put it in between, and we'll pull on our rotor. That'll give us some slack for when we put the caliper back on. This is just sucking in our caliper piston. There we go, give us a little slack, okay. Now we have a little S hook. That'll suspend our caliper once we get it off. Those are 18 millimeter. Now on your rotor, you may or may not still have the hold down screw. That is a T30 Torx. Hopefully it comes right off. Easy breezy. Now this is just on for assembly, so you don't have to reinstall it. That's up to you. This came off so easy, I'll just put it right back on. Rotor comes off. Let's pull off our ball joints. Before we get too far, we want to get our wheel speed sensor wiring out of the way. We can disconnect it from up here, and this should pop out of its little hole. I'm gonna get a screwdriver, pop it up. Having a pair of pliers like this can help. Then we can pop it out of this holder, just like that, okay. They can just dangle here, no big deal. Now we have our upper ball joint is an 18 millimeter, if it's still factory. Shouldn't be on there too tight. Torque is pretty low on that. Now I have a ratcheting wrench just to make it go faster. We got some more pickle fork action up top. There we go. Move it back. So now we can start to push our CV axle out. There we go. Okay. I'll set this aside for now. Now that it's out and free, we're gonna pull off our lower ball joint and get our knuckle off. Got 24 millimeter on mine. I'll get it again with a pickle fork. I'm gonna hold on to it because it'll want to drop once it pops. I popped you with the hammer. Let me back you up out of the danger zone. There we go. Perfect. Now we'll just set this aside. Then we'll lift this up and set it right there. Perfectly out of the way. Now this ball joint is original. That's pretty impressive. Let me show you. So the factory ball joints are stamped in. So once they press it up, they have a machine that stamps it in as a key. So we can go ahead and just get all this dirt and crust away. We're gonna have to unstamp it, which is pretty easy to do. I did the other side already first and it was replaced before. So if it's been replaced before, it'll just have a snap ring that you unsnap, and that's all you gotta do. But if yours is original, like this, then we'll unstamp it. So you can use a chisel, that works well. I have this little weird punch thing that I've modified, doesn't matter. Not sure if you can see it. Let me really clean this up so you can see it the best. And just with the chisel, get something a little more substantial. Okay. Move you around. Move the CV axle. I know it's in your way. Okay, I think that's good. Now let's drive it out. And hopefully there's not too many shadows in your way. We'll get the new one, pull off our boot, and we're gonna want a receiver that's bigger than the ball joint. Get this one. So this is better. So it's bigger, but not crazy bigger. So that'll go on our bottom, along with this. So it has the big hole that goes on the bottom, just like that. And then the top is just gonna be our rod. All right, just like that. If you're not replacing your upper control arm, this is how you would do it. But we are replacing our upper control arm to replace our ball joint. So in that case, we're not gonna press out our lower yet. we're gonna take off our upper. That'll clear out all this space up here and make it easier. So let's do that first. And we just tighten her down. And you can put a little lubricant on the threads too. That would be helpful. This already has a bunch of lubricant on it. Let me set you back just a little. You're just in my arm's way. There we go. I just heard it pop. Nice, it's going through. I'm gonna hit it with the impact and just knock it the rest of the way. Okay, that's it. Ball joint's in the cup. There she is. We're gonna take a little bit of dielectric grease, silicone paste as a lubricant, put on the inside. All right, this is important, whether your control arm is aluminum or steel. It makes a difference to what ball joint goes inside here. Let me show you an example. This flat top is for a steel control arm, and then this coned top is for an aluminum control arm. You'll also notice a difference in height between where our snap ring goes on either one. The aluminum control arm is a little taller from this lip to the snap ring. So if you get the wrong one, you'll bolt it in. The diameter is the same, so it'll press in nice, but the snap ring groove will not protrude enough to get a snap ring in it. Steel, aluminum. The control arm we're working with here is aluminum. Other than that, everything I believe is the same. Now we'll press in our new one. We've got a little paste here we could put on just as a lubricant. There we go. So now we want a piece that fits over here, and that's gonna fit right over the top just like that. Then we have a cap. This is the cap to take it off. Nice big hole. This one's a little tiny hole. We're gonna put that on. Now our ball joint, our fitting, we wanna make sure our orientation isn't facing the wheel. We wanna be able to grease that so we can face it forward, maybe a little angled. So when we get our oil changed or next time we want to grease it, it's nice and accessible. Put that in. Okay, and we'll hold it. Now we can just use the open bottom end. Go on the bottom. Let me take this out a little more. Open bottom end. There we go. Okay, we'll center this top again. Center the bottom. All right. Make sure it's going in as straight as possible. So now I'm not going to use an impact putting it back on. Let me tighten it down. And back you up again. Whew, it takes a lot of muscles. Looks like we're still going in relatively straight. So the longer your breaker bar, the better. So I just went and got a longer one out of the van. So all my muscles. Okay, we are bottomed out. I'll go a little tighter just to see. Nope, I think that's it. So now we loosen it up. Hit that with the impact, finish it off. All right, done with our ball joint press. Now we can put on our grease fitting. Mine's a little 8mm, yours might be different. I'm gonna fill it up with grease now before I put the boot on so I can see it come out the bottom. Okay, and then I'll turn it, and I'll turn it, turn it. There we go. Okay, that's it. I'll wipe this off. Now I'll put the boot on. The cup that comes with it is for installing it. Put the boot and then this. There we go. All right, last thing to do for our lower ball joint is our cotter pin here. That keyhole we want to turn, so when we get the knuckle on, tighten up our nut, then our cotter pin goes sideways, so in the future it's easy to come off. For that, we'll put the nut on, and then we'll tighten the nut up, and then that will spin the whole thing. Yeah, that's pretty good. Take that back off. All right, one more thing. We have our C-clamp, we'll spread that. Okay, like just hitting it on the top, make sure it's in all the way. And then if it can move around, there we go. I'm gonna move it all the way so it's on this side. That way in the future when it gets grimy and rusty, we'll have a good spot to hit on it to break it free. Hopefully we won't be back here for another 10 years. All right, lower ball joint is complete. Now we can throw our knuckle back on. So we're gonna put it in the bottom first. Let me get my nut ready to go. Okay, and then we'll put the nut on, a few threads. Perfect. Now we can put our CV axle in. On our CV axle, just the splines, we're gonna put a little anti-seize. Doesn't take a lot. We just wanna coat the splines all the way around. We don't wanna get it on our threads, just the splines. Those will come out easier in the future. Keep it from seizing in there. All right, we'll line up our splines. Perfect. I'm gonna lift up, get a little more threads, tighten on my lower ball joint. Now we'll do our upper. Pull this off. Now just like the lower, our cotter pin hole is in the wrong spot. So we're just gonna tighten this up. We're gonna move that around. Okay, right about there. And we'll feed this through. We'll just, with a pry bar, pry down here. There we go. Throw that castle nut on. Snug her down. All right. And we can tighten this and throw in the cotter pin. 37 foot-pounds, which isn't that much. You can get a crow's foot if you want an exact torque, or just aim for 37 in your mind. And then we'll throw that cotter pin on. There we go. We can also tighten up our lower ball joint. That's 81 foot-pounds. And we'll put in our cotter pin. Now, if it doesn't quite line up, just go to the next castle slot. Don't back it off, just go forward. Okay, that's finished. Put our axle nut on. Turn this, put a rotor on. And our mounting bolt came off pretty easy, so I'm just gonna put it back on. Put a little anti-seize on it if you like, or just leave it off if you like. That's up to you. As far as torque, just torque enough till it starts spinning. Give it a little tap. That's pretty much it. Doesn't take much. We'll put our caliper on. Some of my brake pads fell out. Put those back on. That should slide on pretty easily. I'm just gonna feed one bolt in there, just to hold it in place. Let me move you to the other side. We want a little bit of thread locker on our caliper bracket bolts. Suck those down. And these are a whopping 148 foot-pounds. While we're over here, we have our brake bracket. We can go on that little 10 mil. And we'll torque this to GNS, good and snug. Now we have our wheel speed sensor. Route that back around, plug it in, double check. I think the last thing is our tie rod. Tie rod just goes in. Last thing to torque is our spindle nut, 177 foot-pounds. Again, we could put a screwdriver in the fins, and while we're torquing it down, that'll hold our hub in place for us. Double check everything. When we are complete, we're gonna go ahead and put our tire on, then take it for a good spin. All right, that is it. Take it for a good test drive. Make sure you don't hear any clunks, new squeaks, or anything crazy, and you're good to go. Any comments, post down below. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. See you on the next one.